this was one of the most interesting because of all the twists and turns cases that I've researched this far, but it's also one of the most scary ones that it just really bothers me to know that we still don't know who he is. There are some new things that they're trying, and I will go into that at the end of the video. But if you missed this series from the beginning and you want to catch up, I will have a playlist in the description box down below where you can click and hear hours, or listen, I should say, to hours of research on the Zodiac killer. Now, today is the last part, but I could have done 2 parts. I have over 16 pages of research for the last part, and I actually cut quite a few corners on different suspects that came up throughout the years, but I included some of the most well-knowns, or the ones that I think are, I don't want to say likely, but you know, the ones that actually make a little bit more sense that it's actually them, or it was one of them. You know, there's no proof, there is nothing. That is why we don't have a name for the Zodiac killer, but I hope that with the new developments that I will share with you at the end of the video, we can finally find out who he is, even if he's not still alive. And I'll explain a little bit more how that goes. As always, this is an ASMR video. If you do not care for ASMR or whispering, you find it weird, creepy, or whatever the case may be, please exit out of this video. It will be whispered from start to finish. Also, I always try to include some of my thoughts in these cases, so if that's something that you don't care about, you're more than welcome to exit out of this video right now. There's a lot of documentaries and information on the internet where you can find what I'm going to share with you today, so you don't really have to listen to my video if you don't enjoy it. Finally, I want to say thank you to all my Patreons. I really appreciate the support that I've been getting from you guys, and you are amazing, so thank you as always for being there and support my channel. Now I'm gonna start with the part where I'm gonna explain a little bit about Paul Avery, which is a character that you will probably, if you ever research this story, his name would probably come up in a lot of the articles are written about the Zodiac, and somebody who actually worked in the media at the time. Again, this is a reporter that followed the Zodiac cases since the beginning, and I don't know, I feel like he took a little bit of the responsibility, or he wanted to play a little bit of the police work, or he wanted to become a little detective of his own, and he wrote and posted an article which was basically a letter to the Zodiac, and in it he made a few strong accusations, hoping that the Zodiac would contact again, or try to, you know, in one of those letters or something, that he would contact the media. Maybe he could find a mistake or something that he would do because he was acting, you know, erratically, or he was upset and he could have, you know, make a mistake or something like that. So in the article that he wrote, it was mostly trying to hurt his ego. The article basically said that Paul Avery believed that the Zodiac was a liar, and that he was taking credit for the crimes he didn't commit, the mistake he made in each one of the crimes. And you know, there are a few pieces of physical evidence, so he kind of referred to each one of those like a fingerprint, a partial fingerprint, which, by the way, we're not even sure that it was the Zodiac at this point. him talking to the victims, and the victims that survived kind of get put together a kind of a profile of this guy. So, he was trying to hurt his ego, and he also said in that same letter that he thought that he was homosexual. So I don't know if he thought that would be an insult or something to the guy back then. I can't put myself in the 60s at this point, but yeah, he also said that, and he said that he was probably unsure of his manhood, whatever that means. Whatever that means, I'm gonna leave it there. Then the other part of the same article was quoting Thomas C. Lynch, which was the district attorney at the time, who talked, the district attorney was trying to talk directly to the Zodiac, so Paul Avery, he quoted the district attorney in his same article, and I don't know, it almost kind of praised the guy, in my opinion. He, unlike Paul, said that he believed that the Zodiac was a very smart guy, which I don't know why Paul would include this, kind of contradict what he just said, but, and, the district attorney said that even though he was a smart guy, he was eventually going to get caught, and that it would be a better idea if he turned himself in before tragedy is written in blood. Kind of both sides of the coin, right? Because Paul, with his attack trying to hurt his ego, and this other one trying to praise him for being smart and not be able to catch him, but at the same time trying to have him understand that eventually they were sure that they were going to catch him. Now, on October 22nd, a police department in Oakland, California, received a call. Now, apparently it was the Zodiac, and I'm saying apparently because there's a lot of, theories at the end that I'm gonna go through, and they kind of play around the theory that maybe it wasn't him, but according to this story, it was the Zodiac that called, and he demanded that F. Lee Bailey, which was a very well-known lawyer and pretty successful one, by the way, to show up in a TV show. And apparently he was planning to call the TV show and try to get some advice from this lawyer that was a really good one. He also said in that call that in the worst case scenario, and if Bailey wasn't able to attend, that he wanted another attorney, and his name is Melvin Belli, or Belli, B-E-L-L-I, Belli, I think, which was another very successful and very well-known lawyer. Because of the timing, which, by the way, I don't get what this, but the first choice, which was Lee Bailey, couldn't make it, but the attorney Melvin Belli did. And apparently the Zodiac called at around 2 a.m. and all this happened within hours, because that same morning the regular programming got suspended to have him as a host, the attorney as a host in the AM San Francisco show. The host asked the public to not call during the show so they could wait for the Zodiac call. A few minutes later, the Zodiac called, and it was the same voice that called again to the police station demanding this show. And between the attorney, Belli, and the host, they started to ask him questions. The man on the other end identified himself as Sam, and he said that he was mentally ill and suffered from headaches that prompted him to start killing people. So basically he said why he was doing it. The call got disconnected many times, and he called back over 12 times. However, the police couldn't trace last time you wanted to talk to the attorney, Belly, um, in private, and he made plans to meet the next day. The show actually was more like a circus, if you ask me. The host and the attorney believed that they were talking to the Zodiac, and they were trying to come up with a lot of questions that the guy didn't even want to answer. When the reporters talked to them at the end of the show, and they asked, the attorney and the host if they believed that was actually the Zodiac that called, they said that they both believed that he was. And also when they played the tape to the lady that picked up the phone and the dispatcher that picked up the phone when he requested this, she said that it was the same voice. Now, when the last call, when he talked to the lawyer in private, again, they made plans to meet the next day. And the problem was that when the lawyer showed up in the area where they were going to meet, of course he didn't show up. The Zodiac or the guy, Sam, never showed up. It was full of people, it was reporters, it was a circus, and at that point the lawyer knew that he wasn't going to do it. He didn't want to give himself up in that kind of environment. However, the district attorney, John J. Verdon, was very upset with Belly because he had no right to promise anything, especially to avoid the death sentence. Apparently, in the conversation that they had, the lawyer told Sam, or the Zodiac, as is believed, that he was going to try to help him as much as he could if he gave himself up. And when the Zodiac didn't show up, the lawyer went and talked to the reporters and asked the Zodiac to keep communicating through the media to try to help him. Now, the interesting part is that when they played the recording to the surviving people that the Zodiac attack, they all agreed that it wasn't the same guy, that it wasn't his voice. So it's kind of interesting to see how maybe this was a mistake, but having all the people that he attacked saying that it wasn't him, maybe it wasn't, but maybe it was somebody else that was posing as him. Maybe it was a friend of his that he made a call or something. We don't know, but that's something that you should know. On November 8th, 1969, the San Francisco Chronicles received another handwritten note from the Zodiac. In it said that people needed a good laugh before they hear the bad news. And also said that he wanted that published in the front page this time because he didn't want to feel lonely or ignored. In the same letter, he included a cipher. That cipher was one of a kind and nobody has been able to translate it or understand it, or it's just something that it was either done on purpose and it means nothing, or it's something that really hasn't been done before. The following day, on the 9th, they got another letter. This one very long, and explained the different ways he was going to continue to kill people, how and where he got the guns he used, not specifically the areas, but from what area, from not specifically from a store, but from what area he got it. He referred to killing 7 people instead of attacking 7 people. That he makes a reference that police believe is him making a bomb to attack a school bus. This is something that he later will confirm, but in that same letter he was basically telling them that he was building a bomb to kill kids in a school bus. He called it his death machine. It also said that he even spoke to a police officer the night of Paul's death. Remember the cab driver? Well, apparently in this letter he said that he talked to a police officer, or I think a couple of them, and that he was questioned by them, but they let him go. And I'm just saying this, I'm paraphrasing this, because the way that he referred to police officers were as big, as fat asses, as, I mean, it was very demeaning. Then a couple of police officers remembered that the day of Paul's death, they were responding to the crime scene and they were looking for a blackmail, which was the misunderstanding, if you remember, that the kids called in to report what happened to Paul, and apparently in the communication the police understood that they weren't looking for a blackmail. So the police officer that they now remember seeing a guy who happened to be white and was walking along the route that later on witness said that the killer took. The officers gave a description that added to the description that they had of the guy previously from the attacks. Again, between 35 and 45 years old, between 180 and 200 pounds, medium to heavy build, medium complexion, glasses, and light color hair, possible graying. The letters and calls stopped, but there was a rumor going around that said that the lawyer, remember Belly, the one that was stood up by the Zodiac, was still in contact with a strange man. The police eventually investigated, but apparently, and according to several articles, the calls came from a mental patient in an institution that had telephone privileges. So, not necessarily the Zodiac. Maybe the lawyer believed that he was talking to the Zodiac, but it wasn't him. However, it was never confirmed, but most people believe that those conversations, again, were not with the Zodiac, but with somebody who needed help. Some people even question if the call to the TV show was him or not. Again, something that we cannot confirm. Later on, the lawyer Melvin Belly got a legitimate letter from the Zodiac. It was in the 1-year anniversary of him killing Betty Lou and David Faraday. He wanted to wish him a Merry Christmas. I don't know why, but all his letter Christmas ends with 2 S's, which is something that you will see if you do a little bit of research in this case. It's something that always was interesting in the letters. He also asked for help from him and explained that something in him wouldn't let him go to the police or get help. He also said that he was scared and didn't want to kill, but he might feel the need and couldn't resist it. He also said that he hasn't finished the bomb and was planning to plant in a bus to kill the kids, and that he was holding as much as he could, but he knew that he needed help. Now, this leads me to believe that maybe this guy had some kind of multiple personalities. I don't know if you've done your research about that, but it's like different people live in you, and whoever is in charge at the time, it kind of does stuff that maybe the other personalities don't want to do. So when it comes to the other personality that didn't want to do it, they really want to get help. But, that evil side, let's call it something, that bad personality that the person has, don't let them. So maybe he was trying to, while he was this other person, maybe he wrote the letters, but then it's just very hard to know. I remember watching a show that it was about this, and this guy, he kidnapped a police officer or an FBI agent. I can't remember what it was, but the idea is that one of the personalities wanted to hurt him, so he would hurt him personality came back, he would give him medicine like ibuprofen and everything so he could heal. And it was the same guy. So think about how scary that is for the person that is going through that, and think about the person, in this case, the hostage, who would never know who he was dealing with. So I don't know. All this kind of led me to believe that maybe he did wanted to get some help. He wasn't just toying with the police. Maybe he just couldn't help it, actually, which is not an excuse, but maybe he needed, mental help, some kind of. But it's just so hard to believe that nobody knew who this guy was, or nobody could tell that he was doing this. On March 22nd, 1970, 22-year-old Kathleen Johns was driving Highway 132. She was on her way to go visit her mother about 500 miles away, and she was also traveling with her 10-month-old daughter. As it was getting dark, she saw a car behind her, and the car started honking and flashing the lights. She got very scared and pulled over. A guy came out of the car and said that her back tire was loose and that he could tighten the lug nuts, and that would fix it and keep her safe. She had no idea about anything, tire related or cars, so she agreed. He took the tool and worked on the tire, and then instead of talking to her, he went straight to his car and left. A few minutes later, the tire came off completely. And coincidentally, which I don't believe in coincidences, but the same guy circled around to give her a ride if she needed one. They were headed to a shop to see if somebody could help her replace the tire so she would keep going and go to her mom's. But he would pass every single service shop, and when she asked, something, why didn't we stay, stop there or something like that, he would change the subject or not answer at all. Kathleen, at that point, she knew she was in trouble, and she knew that somehow she got kidnapped. Kathleen waited for a stop sign, and when she saw that one was coming, she got the baby in her arms and took off. She opened the door and left. The man immediately got out and started to look for her, and he had a flashlight, and he looked around, but she found a safe place to hide, and he couldn't find her. Now, when the police got there, she realized that, let me stop right there because I'm just getting ahead of myself. She called the police, and when the police got there, she immediately identified the guy from a poster, which was basically the sketch that they had of the Zodiac. When the police went back to go check her car and hopefully try to find some kind of physical evidence, well, apparently he was there before them, and he gutted the car and then set it on fire. You know what? This sounds like a very scary movie. The ones that you're like, how can you do that so fast? Well, apparently this guy could. Something that is also very interesting is that same night, something similar was going on, but this time had to do with Paul's family. Remember the cab driver? Apparently Paul's brother, when the Zodiac killed Paul, he challenged the Zodiac in an interview he had with media. I don't know if it was one of those first things that he said after he found out, I'm not sure, but he told him, come and get me, and something to the extent that he had no weapons and he didn't need one to beat him. So basically he challenged the Zodiac. So on the same night, let's go back to the same night that Kathleen was abducted, Carol, which is Paul's sister, she was threatened by a man on the road. He did the same thing with the flashlights, and she didn't stop. She was still scared about, everything that happened to her. So he came right by her side and pointed to one of her tires. Carol was still shaken up by what happened to Paul, so she sped up and left that guy behind. is when he decided to go and get Kathleen, because this happened before whatever happened to Kathleen. Then on April 20th, 1970, the Zodiac wrote another letter to the San Francisco Chronicle. At this point, it's been 5 months since the last one. In this letter, he asked if they have cracked his last cipher. Remember, nobody could. And said, "My name is," and he left a code. Then he started to talk about the explosion on the Golden Gate on February 16th. I said he was hoping that they didn't think it was him. He acknowledges that he threatened to kill kids with a bomb, but he didn't have anything to do with what happened in the bridge. In that explosion, a police officer lost his life, and he said that he knew that cops would be harder to kill than kids because they can fire back. In the second part of that letter, there is a diagram of how he was building this second bomb, or death machine as he called it. In the next few months, the letters continued, and his tally at the bottom of the letters grew larger and larger, more and more victims. But the amount of information that he was giving on each one of those victims, it was less and less. Then on April 28, 1970, he sent a greeting card to the San Francisco Chronicle and requested that people of San Francisco to start wearing a button with his Zodiac symbol. Now, that wasn't very popular at the time, of course, so 2 months later they got another letter saying that since nobody did anything and were not wearing his button, that he killed a guy that was sitting in a bench with a 38. Apparently he was talking about what happened to a police officer writing a ticket on a moving violation. Apparently he was sitting on a bench writing it, and another car stopped and shot him with a 38 caliber. The police, when this happened, didn't think it was the Zodiac, but now he was claiming that he did. Then there was also a road map of the San Francisco Bay Area, where in Mount Diablo was drawn his sign, and the numbers 0, 3, 6, and 9 were written. This and the cipher, according to the Zodiac, contain where the basically that's where the bomb was going to be set on. Then another letter came, and he continued to say that he was disappointed about the people not wearing his buttons, and that he decided to go get the lady and her baby, referring to Kathleen, and he gave them a ride to a few months later. So basically he was threatening Kathleen that he was going to go back for her. 2 days after, on July 26, 1970, they got another letter. In it, he claimed to have killed 13 people. On October 5th, 1970, another card was received by the San Francisco Chronicle. In it, he continued to boast on the fact that he had 13 victims, how police were getting closer to him, but how he is smarter than them, and not even a lot of money would make people find him, that he was smarter than them. On October 27, 1970, Paul Avery, the reporter covering the Zodiac story, got a Halloween card signed with the letter Z and the Zodiac symbol. In that greeting card, he talked about his slaves. Remember that he said that all the people that he killed, when he dies and goes to heaven, he will have those as slaves. So he started talking about all the people he killed and how they will be serving him in paradise. He even listed how they die: by fire, by gun, by knife, by a rope. Then on the flip side of the car, there was a bored looking skeleton, and included the number 4 and then teen, trying to imply that he was going to kill his victim number 14, and that Paul Avery was probably going to be that person. This got a lot of attention, and first page, of course. So the reporter started wearing a button that said, "I am not Paul Avery." Including Paul, he was wearing one of those buttons. He also carried a gun for years after receiving that card. Over 2 years after the Zodiac's first attack in Riverside, California, Jerry Bates enrolled in community college in the fall of 1966. On the night before Halloween, on October 30th, 1966, she spent the evening at the library on campus. By the time the library was closing, she was still there, and people assumed that as soon as she left, she was going to go straight home, but she never made it home that night. The next morning, the body of Sherry Jo Bates was found close to the library, between two abandoned houses. She was brutally stabbed and beaten, but apparently she wasn't sexually assaulted. The neighbors reported to the police the next day that they heard some screaming that night, but they just didn't think it was anything, so they didn't call it in that night. The police found a man's Timex wristwatch nearby, and that the time stopped at around 12:24. That watch was eventually traced down to a type of watch exclusively for military posts. They thought that this one in particular was from one in England. They also found a heel print with military-style shoes between sizes 8 and 10. They also checked Sherry's car too, and apparently the wires for the distributor cap were pulled. So apparently when she got out, of course her car wasn't going to start, and maybe that's how everything started. On November 29th, 1966, a month after the Riverside Police and Riverside Press Enterprise, they both got letters. So a month after this, they both got letters, the media and the police. And they were the same ones, exactly the same thing. It said on both of them. But this time they were typed and now handwritten. They were titled The Confession. In the letter, he confessed with gruesome details how he killed Sherry. So many details that only the killer would have known, because the police didn't release this information to the public. In the letter, he said that she wouldn't be the first or the last one, and he also explained why he did it. Apparently, he turned him down, so he decided to kill her. Sure, yeah. I mean, isn't that a great excuse? I mean, this guy. Okay, on December of 1966, a custodian at Riverside College discovered something very interesting. It was a poem that was carved into the bottom of a desk at the library. The title of that poem was "Sick of Living and Willing to Die." And the language in this one was very similar to the one that was used in the last two letters. At the bottom of the poem, the author carved the initials RH. Then on April 30th, 1967, three nearly identical handwritten letters were received by the Riverside Police, the Riverside Press Enterprise, and the father of Sherry Jo. His name is Joseph. In the letter, it said that Sherry had to die and that there will be more. Pretty much the same thing. I'm assuming that there was a lot more in the letters that the police never released. That is a fact. We do have a lot of the letters, but not every single thing. In November 1970, Paul Avery, the apparent victim number 14 that wrote the article, he wrote another article where he made it a lot more clear the idea that I don't know, he's been working on a lot of, apparently he had some kind of a lead and he's been working on this for a really long time. So he published this article, but he also tried to help in Sherry's death investigation. So he went to Riverside and took the letters to an expert in handwriting who had a lot of experience with the Zodiac letters, and this expert determined that unquestionably that was the Zodiac. On March 13, 1971, the Zodiac responded to Paul's article by sending one of his letters to the LA Times. This time was the LA Times. And it said something like he is crack proof. He said in a demeaning way, I'm not going to repeat the way that he expressed himself, but I'm just going to paraphrase, that if police wanted to catch him, they needed to get off their butts and do something, because he would continue to collect slaves for as long as he could. He said that it was smart of them to find his doings in Riverside, but there is a lot more that they had no idea about. He also said that he sent the letters there because they don't hide his letters in the back, and usually he gets the front page. Now, after all this, we're gonna move on to Ross Sullivan. He attended Glendale High School and graduated in 1959. He then attended and worked at Riverside College, and he is one of the most interesting characters that you will be able to hear from in this story. He at work, he graduated and he studied at the college, and now he's an employee, but everyone recognized him as an odd guy. He even wrote weird poems in the library. Again, remember that the poem had the initials RH, and his name is Ross Sullivan, so I don't know if he had anything to do with the poem or not. On the days after Jerry died, he didn't go to work. The following year, in 1967, he decided to move to another college, this time in Santa Cruz in California, which is a little bit up north, the San Francisco area. Later, on February 6, 1968, he was arrested for dancing naked in a day's trance, and he got charged with indecent exposure and disorderly conduct. This wasn't a big deal, but he also got a 72-hour mental hold to get a mental evaluation, so something was off. Right then, he was diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic and was held in the Santa Cruz mental ward. While he was away, the correspondence with the Zodiac stopped, so a lot of people kind of believed that he was the Zodiac for a long time. Now, the police, of course, they were building a case against Ross Sullivan and the possibility of him being the Zodiac. However, he died in his home in Santa Cruz. Apparently, this guy was extremely obese, and they don't have the exact cause of death, but they believe that it was heart failure. In the meantime, while they were still investigating Ross Sullivan, they were continuing with the investigation. Apparently, the postcard that they received on March 22nd, 1971 was addressed to Paul Avery. It had words and phrases cut out from magazines and advertisements, and it kind of led them to believe that the Zodiac was leading them to Lake Tahoe in a new victim. Well, at the same time, there was a woman that disappeared in the Lake Tahoe area. Her name was Donna Lass. She was a nurse that lived in State Line, California, and worked as a nurse at the Sahara Tahoe Hotel and Casino nearby South Lake Tahoe. I read somewhere that this is what is it? The restaurant, a Hard Rock Cafe now, but there was the casino, and she worked there as a nurse. On the morning of September 6, 1970, wow. Wasn't that yesterday? September 6, okay, yeah. She had to work until 2 a.m., but this was back in 1970. She had to work until 2 a.m., and at that time, she left to go home. She finished her shift and went home. never found, and the emergency was fake and probably fabricated by the guy who killed her. She left everything behind, including her apartment that was, nearby where Paul Stein was living the prior year. Police attributed this killing to the Zodiac based on their investigation, and of course, the car that Paul Avery got. In November of 1972, Santa Barbara's county's official tried to connect one of their cold cases to the Zodiac. Robert Domingos and Linda Edwards, who at the time were seniors in the Lompoc High School near Santa Barbara, California. Robert and Linda decided to ditch school one day, and they headed down to a beach near Lompoc and decided to spend the time there instead of going to school. The police think that they were sunbathing, and whoever killed them had a pre-cut rope and went to them and made them tie each other. At the time, it seemed like both of them got free somehow. Maybe they didn't tie their ropes tight enough, and they tried to run. So they got shot repeatedly in the back with a .22 caliber weapon. And because of the proximity of the shots to each other, apparently the guy that shot them was an expert, or he was really good with guns. Then their bodies were dragged 30 feet and placed in a small shack along the beach. He attempted to burn the shack with matches, but he failed. Now, they had no confirmation of the Zodiac being the killer, but they knew that fitted kind of his MO, if you will. Now, there was no confirmed communication between the Zodiac and the media between March of 1971 and January of 1974. But on January 29th of 1974, they got one. And this one, he wanted to discuss the movie The Exorcist, which I hate, by the way. I hate the story. I've been doing research about it. It had a different symbol, but also it was kind of bizarre. It was a weird letter. Then a letter was sent to the San Francisco Chronicles a few weeks later. In this letter, a friend, quote-unquote friend, informed the editor that the initials from the Symbionese Liberation Army, an active left-wing terrorist group spelled as SEA, a Norwegian word that means kill. If you're from there, you're probably killing me for butchering that. This letter was confirmed that wasn't the Zodiac. It was somebody who was trying to inform the police that that was related to that specific event and that specific organization. However, these letters would continue, and every time they got a new letter, they would talk about movies and symbols and stuff that would relate to the murders, but nothing specific. Many people believe that these letters weren't written by the Zodiac, while experts believe they were. This was years from his last claimed kill, and if it was the Zodiac, he was just enjoying the spotlight. The case went completely cold, but then on 1978, the Zodiac sent another letter to the San Francisco Chronicles. It was actually on the 24th. He basically stated that he was still here, and he made a reference that he was going to the movies. Now see, this series of letters, they're kind of weird, but let's keep going and we'll understand a little bit more. It seemed like, in fact, it was the Zodiac, but later on, a former employee of the newspaper compared to a fan letter that was very similar and that he believed that was written by a detective. Actually, a very well-known detective in this case is Dave Toschi. Detective Toschi was investigated, and he said that he did in fact write that fan letter the series of books that the guy wrote, and that he would never write a letter posing to be as the Zodiac because he had enough work as it is. Why would he come up with something that is not even real? He was investigated and cleared, but his reputation was stained forever. I mean, was the Zodiac writing that letter? We may never know. I mean, over the years, there has been alleged letters with the Zodiac, but none of it has been confirmed. Now, let's talk about Robert Graysmith, which was a cartoonist that worked at the San Francisco Chronicle, and he began to document everything from the beginning. He was obsessed with the Zodiac, and after years, he published a book in 1986, actually a bestseller, and kind of freshen up the people's memory about what happened with this guy. Just a few months later, the San Francisco Chronicle got another letter saying that again it was the Zodiac and he was still here and he was still crack proof. He claimed to have collected more slaves 2 weeks ago near Sacramento, California, and they were killed by a freeway, and that he also almost got caught, but that at this time he death count was over 100. Later on they said that wasn't the Zodiac letter and probably was a fan that recreated his style of writing, because apparently Robert Graysmith, the one that published the book, he explained in the book on how you can recreate the way that the Zodiac wrote the letters. Apparently this guy Robert inspired many people to kill. Yes, not even inspired to anything else but to kill, even to become fans of the Zodiac and do horrible things, killings, and they were happening all around the country, like the ones in New York, that they were targeting people for their Zodiac sign. You probably know about that story, but it's crazy that it almost feel like it was inspired by them. The Zodiac case got cold. There was no new leads, and even though the police never closed it, it wasn't really being actively investigated. Then the Christmas card of 1990 was investigated, and some people believe that he was still alive at the time and killing, while others don't believe that it actually came from him. On March 2nd, 2007, the movie The Zodiac was released and was based in the book written by Robert Graysmith. The good thing about this movie is that they had access to legitimate case files and were able to interview investigators and people involved in this investigation. Even Brian, remember, he was the student that survived the attack at Lake Parisa. He said that the movie, when he saw it, affected him so much because the scene where Cecilia got stabbed, it was very precise and it was very how it happened. Now, Robert Graysmith believed that he knew who the Zodiac killer was. I forgot to mute my computer. It's kind of driving me nuts now. But it's not close by me. Let me turn it off. I have to turn off the Wi-Fi in order to stop all the emails that are coming in. Now, we were at the part where Robert Graysmith believed that he knew who the Zodiac killer was, and he had a specific person in mind, which, by the way, if you ask me, I think this is the guy that would actually make a lot of sense to believe that he was the Zodiac, but at the same time there's a lot of evidence that says that he's not, so let me explain who he is. His name is Arthur Lee Allen, and was born in 1933. His father was a military man, and Arthur grew up with him in the Vallejo, California area where all the killings apparently started. Arthur, or Lee, as he was called, was honorably discharged in 1958. He then decided to move back home with his parents in Vallejo and became a teacher. He was also fired from there in March of 1968. Apparently, this guy had some kind of sexual misconduct or even was accused of child molestation. He was described as fascinated by kids and hated women. He was actually angry at them. He never had any girlfriends or nobody knew any girlfriends of him. On October 4th, 1969, Lee was interviewed by a detective that got a lead that he was near the area where Paul Stine was killed, and he said that he was basically scuba diving, so he had nothing to do with what happened to Paul. The guy that reported Lee also said that the police that previously he told him that he had the desire to kill people and that he wanted to use the nickname Zodiac, and told him he was going to use a flashlight to kill. He gave this information to the police actually a week after the Zodiac began attacking in the Lover's Lane area where he started, or allegedly started. They ordered a search of his home, but nothing came out of that, and they found no match in writing or fingerprints. Nothing. So they dropped the guy from the list of suspects. Now we'll come back to him, but for now, he was dropped. He wouldn't stay out of trouble either. In 1974, he was arrested for his child obsession. Okay, he committed a crime. Disgusting. And he was acting on it, so he pleaded guilty to the charge and was given a 2-year sentence and was released in 1977. He then spent his time working odd jobs and living a quiet, isolated life until the book was published by Robert, and there was a man matching Lee's characteristics, and in the book, the name was Bob Holstar. In the book, he was never charged because the police never had any substantial evidence against him. Now, the media put 2 and 2 together, and they realized that this Bob Holstar that it was from the book was actually Arthur Lee, and they got all over the place. They started to go to his house and trying to get statements from him, and he gave his report to the media and even provided alibis for the nights of the attacks. So he was just trying to defend himself, basically, when the people realized that, this person in the book was him. In 1991, the Vallejo Police Department did search his property again and found suspicious things. And remember, he is a felon at the time, so he couldn't have any firearms, and he had some. They also found a typewriter that matched the one the Zodiac used to report on his killings of Jerry Joe Bates, but they weren't sure if it was that particular one that wrote it. This guy Lee struggled with diabetes and heart problems and eventually died in 1992. And after his death, the police decided to search again his house and found a bunch of interesting things. And I feel like there's a lot that kind of points to this guy Lee as the Zodiac, and there's other things that you can't really explain. Okay, some of the evidence that they found was the typewriter. He had also connections to Riverside, which was one of the places of the attack. He used a Zodiac brand wristwatch with the same symbol of the Zodiac. He lived in the Vallejo, California area where everything started. He worked minutes away from Darlene's place and was coincidentally always around the area where the killer struck. There is proof that he was always around. Later on, 1991, the police showed a picture of Arthur Lee to Mike, the guy who survived the attack and left Darlene dead, and he pointed at him as the one who shot them in the summer of '69. So now we have a witness. But remember, he didn't have a good look is today. Apparently, some of the fingerprints that they have no proof that it could be from the killer, but it could have been the mailman. I mean, they have no idea if those are his fingerprints. So if they are not sure that those are his fingerprints, of course, there's always going to, even if they have the right guy, they are still not going to find a match because they don't have the right fingerprints, and that's something that it's a possibility. The police, for a period of time, turned to the friend, the turning. Remember that his friend, Don Cheney, was the one that said, that Arthur Lee said that he wanted to be the Zodiac and stuff like that. They had nothing on him, but he continued to give info about Arthur, saying that in one occasion he asked him to lick the envelopes he was sending in the mail. They took the fingerprints and samples and they came back negative, so he wasn't even a suspect. But again, it was almost like he was trying to cover himself in case that they had his fingerprints. So maybe he was covering himself out, with this and accusing his friend. Just a few years ago, a man named, I think Tanny Kenny or something like that, came forward and said that his friend confessed to be the Zodiac right before he died of cirrhosis of the liver. He had a personal connection with the crimes. The guy that confessed, of course, he went to the same high school of the first attack. He worked at the same restaurant that Darlene worked at. He had access to those military boots because he was in the military too. I mean, from 1971 to 1973, the letter stopped and he was stationed in Germany, so that could have been the reason why, he did it, and he stopped sending the mail those years. Now, this guy that confessed to be the Zodiac to his friend died in 2001, but he asked his friends to tell everyone after he died. When the friend asked why he did it, he said that he had a bad breakup with a girlfriend. However, after all this, he was never considered a suspect. Now, there are some other suspects that were kind of made up by the internet and their own investigation, and one of them is Richard Joseph Kajkowski. Richard was born in 1936 and served as a medic in the U.S. Army. Then he left the service and moved to the Bay Area and lived really close to the Vallejo area for a period of time. He found a job in the Good Times newspaper and he had a pretty normal life. He also had some kind of a relationship with Arlene. Remember that Darlene, when she first got married with her first husband, she was traveling around the country a lot. Well, apparently her husband James had a job in the newspaper, and they moved to New York. And while she was in New York, this guy Richard was also in New York because he would work for their rival newspaper. When Darlene would move back to the Bay Area, Richard, moved to the Bay Area as well. So it was kind of interesting to see how he was connected to a lot of the victims. But this guy died of cancer in 2004, still living in the Bay Area. When they play his voice for the dispatcher, Nancy, who was one of the dispatchers that actually talked to the Zodiac, she identified him. However, it was many years later and they had no recording, so she would have to remember exactly how the guy sounded like. And another thing that actually kind of proves that he wasn't the one who did it was that he was out of the country at the time of one of the attacks. So yeah, if the Zodiac didn't kill everyone, maybe he was the Zodiac and he just wasn't here for that one in particular who wasn't by the Zodiac himself. Now let's move on to another suspect, which was named Watterson. He was an airline pilot and had ties in almost all the places where the Zodiac attacked his victims. He lived in the Vallejo area and went to high school there. He worked in the Air Force Base that was in the area. Remember, this was a military town back then. and visited Lake Berisa for day trips with his kids. He happened to divorce his wife at the time that the Zodiac started his attacks. Now, digging a little bit deeper in this guy, apparently he had a temper, which doesn't mean anything, but according to some reports, in 1964, he tried to, well, they tried to get a divorce, him and his wife. Apparently, the wife said that he was mentally abusing her or something like that, but they worked it out and they stayed together for a few more years. They ended up divorcing later on, but this was the first attempt. It was in 1964, and coincidentally, in 1964, he was also one of the people that was questioned in the disappearance of Donna Lass from Lake Tahoe. Another interesting thing is that he lived in the LA area by the time that the Zodiac sent a letter to the LA Times in 1971. Nobody can prove that he did anything. You look like him, or the sketch that we have of the Zodiac. And a lot of things are very, they will lead you to believe that he could have been it, but there's nothing that they could have proved on this guy. There's another theory though, and this theory says that somebody was playing with the police, trying to connect cases that they didn't even commit. After a few incidents, maybe, him or other copycats were trying to throw the police off. So yeah, I mean, I personally don't believe that could be what happened, and the police doesn't believe in that either. It's just a theory. But think for a minute. The guy that was calling and sending the letters and ciphers, he was sending proof that he was the one that did it. He sent crime scene specifics and even evidence from the crime scene, like the piece of shirt from Paul. Maybe somebody else took over after Paul, but I don't know. I believe that at the beginning it was him. He was sending proof. It was enough evidence to know that whoever was sending the letters was the one killing. Maybe later on somebody decided to throw them off and start to claim different deaths that were not really his. I mean, maybe somebody that was really sick or that read the book and decided to play this game and try to fool the police, but the police don't believe that this is true. I personally believe that the first 4 attacks, we have strong evidence and that they were perpetrated by the same guy, but however, again, the rest I have no idea. It could have been fabricated by somebody else who was trying to pose as the Zodiac. Now the sad part of the story is that he's not only a serial killer, but he became a legend. Maybe an urban legend. I don't know if we will ever know. If he's still alive, he should be around 80 years old. The police haven't given up 100%. They're still trying to catch the guy in the same way that they found the Golden State Killer. But they're working very hard to narrow it down and get to the family where this guy could have been part of. They're going through envelopes, through stamps, and everything they got from the Zodiac to track him or his family down, so this Zodiac guy can have a name. I find it very interesting to know that even today we can do something about it, that there is still, okay, this might not be taken, most of their time, but they're still trying to find him. Even if the guy died 40 years ago, I think it's very important at this point to give this guy a name and kind of move away, out of the way, the myth or the urban legend or the smartest guy ever who got away with it. I think it's a really great thing that they haven't given up on this. However, if you ask me who is the Zodiac, I believe he was a mental, um, he had some kind of mental illness, or he had some kind of, and I believe that he had some kind of a personality disorder. That's why his letters, and I'm talking about the letters in the beginning, they're so different one from the other. In some letters, he's laughing and he's making fun of the police. In some other letters, he's begging for help. In some other letters, he's claiming so many people's life. And I mentioned about this show a while ago, but one of my favorite Netflix shows was and still is Bates Motel. And I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but the gist of it is that Norman had a personality disorder. And when one of the personalities took over, he just wouldn't see himself as himself. He would see himself as another person. In this case, he would see himself as his mom. He would even dress up as his mom. And I don't want to spoil it for you, but he ended up killing somebody that he really, really loved while this other personality took over. Do you know what I mean? He wasn't a psychopath. He loved this person. He was lost without this person. He went completely mad after he lost this person. But he did it himself and he didn't know. Maybe this guy was kind of changing the numbers on how many people he killed depending on who was writing the letter. I don't know. That's my best guess. Because otherwise you would just have to think that this was a smart guy who got away with it. And I don't think so. The letters would have made a lot more sense. And they really don't make sense. It's like you're talking to different people. And I'm just talking about the letters that we have evidence that are from the Zodiac, because he would send physical evidence, or because he would know stuff that nobody else did but the killer and the police. So I personally believe that he had that, and that there was a point that he wanted to ask for help, and then when the other personality came, he kind of, pushed it and decided not to, and that would be stupid and stuff like that. And believe me, this multiple personality disorder is something that it's scary, but I find it interesting to learn about, so I've been doing a lot of research about it. But going back to the same example that I was giving you, and by the way, of course, this is not the story of Bates Motel, the show, it's not real, but it was kind of showing you some of the traits of that disorder. And when he came to his good side and his real side, the sweet boy that I loved in that show, he would want to ask for help. He would grab the phone and call the police on himself. And then by the time the police got to him, he would make up a new story and he would get away with it because the other personality took over. So you know what I mean? It's that kind of that is the only explanation that I can find for all the inconsistencies and the different voices that the same person had. Confirmed letters, not the later ones, but the beginning ones. And that is the only way that people with personality disorders, they usually have a very high IQ as well. So they probably know how to get away with things. I feel for the guy if that was the case, but I also feel for the families that lost their, loved ones by this guy. It just really, I just wish that there was something that we could do to help these people that have, this kind of, if in fact it was what it was, that be more help available for people that are going through this and cannot control it. It haunts me to believe that nobody could catch this guy yet. But this is his story. And I'm leaving it with the hopes that the police, with the DNA advances that they have today and everything that, how they work to get the Golden State Killer, I hope that we can find who and put a name to this guy soon. Thank you so much for following this series. We'll go back to a start to finish cases starting on Monday. So I hope that you join me for a new one.